How is homeostasis affected by biological rhythms? Okay, so the first thing to remember is that homeostasis is a dynamic process in which you're going to be maintaining physiological variables or physiological parameters within a range around a set point. So in the process of homeostasis, you think about the variable as being at a set point, and it'll oscillate kind of back and forth within that range. And basically what happens in the process of homeostasis is as that parameter starts to increase, kind of it moves up here, we're going to trigger a response. And so we're going to have sensors in the body, they're going to recognize it, and they're going to have an effect to basically drive whatever that stimulus is that has pushed it away from that set point back down. And so if our blood sugar levels are going to increase in homeostasis, insulin is going to be released. And what we're going to have is a decrease in blood glucose levels as the cells are going to be either using the glucose or storing it. And so if we have blood glucose levels elevated, kind of triggering that change, the insulin is going to result in cells taking up the insulin to bring it back down. So with this understanding that homeostasis is going to be a dynamic process where we're going to be taking a look at these physiological variables, these physiological measurements or parameters, and they are going to be oscillating around a set point. Now, it becomes a little bit challenging to think about this kind of in the abstract sense, thinking about physiological measurements. And so let's take it outside of the body and think about what's occurring within your house or apartment or dorm room. You're going to have a thermostat on your wall, which is going to be involved with regulating your temperature. Now, under normal circumstances, in this case, we've got a thermostat set at 72 degrees. The temperature in the room is going to stay about 72 degrees. Now, throughout the day, you may have sunlight that's coming in through the windows, heating up the building, heating up the room, and the temperature may go to 73 or potentially 74. And what's going to happen at that point is the thermostat, with the internal kind of machinery involved with that, is going to recognize that the temperature has increased, and it is going to send a signal to the air conditioner to cool that room. And so in the process of homeostasis, the thermostat is going to trigger cooling effect to decrease the temperature back down to that set point. Now maybe, it's in the autumn, it's colder outside, you left your window open, the thermostat's set at 72, but it's getting cold outside. And so all of a sudden the room is dropping down to 71 or 70. And at that point, the thermostat is going to recognize this change in the temperature, that the temperature in the room is lower than the set point, and it's going to send a signal this time to the furnace. And the furnace is going to generate heat to counteract the cooling that's occurred that has dropped our temperature of the room below its set point. As that furnace generates heat, it's going to heat the room and it's going to bring it back to 72. So in this case, again, we're oscillating, figure out where my hand is, oscillating around a set point. Now with regulated change, the same idea is going to be present. We're still going to have that dynamic process oscillating, in this case, our temperature, our physiological parameter, if we want to think about it that way. But in this case, instead of our temperature being set at 72 on our thermostat, it's going to be set at 78. So if we take a look at a thermostat set at 78, it's going to be a whole lot warmer than 72. But again, if that room starts to increase, if it goes from 78 to 79 to 80, that thermostat is going to recognize that the temperature in the room is higher than the set point, higher than the 78 degrees now, and it is going to trigger the air conditioner to cool the air and bring the temperature back down to 78. If the temperature in the room starts to decrease, so instead of staying at the temperature of 78, the set point, it goes down to 77 or 76, it is now going to send a signal to the furnace to generate heat and bring the temperature back up. So in this case, whether or not we've got the temperature set at 78 or 72, we've still got homeostasis occurring, resulting in oscillation of the temperature around that set point. The only thing that's changed is that set point. So moving inside of the body, we're going to take a look at a couple different examples of physiological measurements or physiological parameters. The first of these is going to be salivary cortisol levels, which change according to a circadian rhythm, so they change at various points during the day. What we can see is that overnight, the salivary cortisol levels are going to stay relatively low, but in anticipation for waking up, involved with alertness, involved with metabolism, involved with regulating blood sugar and blood pressure, we're going to need to have an increase in our cortisol levels. And so we're going to see that it's going to start to increase, basically changing our thermostat from 72 to 78. Our body's going to change the set point for cortisol from relatively low overnight to relatively high within the morning. And so we're going to see that change that's occurred. The levels of cortisol may oscillate a little bit here, but over time, that set point is gradually going to return back down to this low point overnight. And so again, what we're looking at with this process of biological rhythms, circadian rhythms, changes within the body is basically altering the set point, but then allowing that process of homeostasis to maintain the body's parameters, the body's measurements for that variable that we're looking at within a range around that new set point. Another example that we can take a look at with these biological rhythms, these changing in these internal set points within the body for these physiological measurements or physiological parameters, is looking at body temperature. Now, under most circumstances, our body temperatures are going to be about 37 degrees Celsius. For those of us that are metrically challenged, that's about 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, under normal circumstances, it'd be a little bit higher, a little bit lower. It's going to kind of oscillate around that range. But if an injury occurs or a person gets sick, as part of that immune response, we're going to have cells that are going to release signals that are going to change our set point from about 37 degrees, 98.6, upwards to 39 or higher, upwards to over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And we're going to induce a fever. Now, in this case, the fever is involved with a normal process of our immune response, our body's protecting the body, fighting off pathogens, as well as promoting wound healing. And so that fever is going to occur during the process of eliminating the threat, the pathogens, as well as the wound healing or the healing that needs to occur. Once that has occurred, once the pathogen, the disease-causing particle, has been eliminated from the body, you no longer have that signal. The cells that were releasing the signals that said to increase this temperature are going to stop doing that, and so our set point is going to come back down here to about 37 degrees Celsius, 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. But again, regulated change. We're changing the set point in response to something that needs to occur within the body.